Hello and welcome to All Together Now. I'm your host, Bobbie Steinbach, and we have a great show for you tonight, starting with two scenes from the late Jon Lipsky's play, Living in Exile, with the truly gifted actors, Jennie Israel and Elijah Alexander. Jon Lipsky was an exceptional playwright, thought leader, and educator, and he loved to tell stories. I knew Jon for many years as a colleague and a friend. He was a truly authentic man. As his son Jonah has written, Jon believed in people being who they really are, and he certainly infused that quality into his work. And then the delightful award-winning composer, educator, and guitarist Claudio Ragazzi is here to play for you. Claudio won a Grammy for his album Jazz Tango, and the piece he chose for tonight is Coltrangazo, a mashup of the styles of two great jazz icons. We'll start with Living in Exile. The actor, director, teacher, and my friend, Jennie Israel, is a frequent presence with regional companies across the country and on Boston stages. Jennie was one of the founders of Actor Shakespeare Project, where she co-pioneered the Incarcerated Youth at Play project, working with incarcerated girls and Shakespeare's texts. An amazing program. Actor and director Elijah Alexander is also at home on regional stages across the U.S. and has worked internationally with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Jennie and Elijah originally met in graduate school at Yale, and they'll tell us more about that. Welcome, 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 Elijah and Jennie.
Thank you, Bobbie. Good to be here.
Jennie, where are you now, Jennie, and what are you up to these days?
I am in Wellfleet in Cape Cod with my children, and mostly I've been overseeing their remote learning, which means that my 6th grade son works really hard all day, and my 7-year-old daughter runs feral and free in the forest for the most part. So.
Oh my. Well, what a lovely place to be. And Elijah, where are you? And what are you up to these days? I think you've been on quite an adventure.
I've been sort of quarantined on the road for the last 3 months. When this all hit the fan, as it were, the proverbial fan, I was actually at the Alley Theater in Houston in the middle of a run of a play called Camp David by Lawrence Wright, which we rehearsed in New York at the top of the year and then premiered it at the Alley, intending to bring it back to the Public Theater in New York. So I was in the middle, we were toward the end of the run of that show there when this all came down. And I sort of left Houston, and from Houston to Austin, into Colorado, then Palm Desert, and then Utah again, back to Detroit. So I'm here now visiting my mom, where I'll stay for the next couple weeks. But I really have been on the move and on the road since the beginning of this global pandemic here domestically. And it's been very, very enlightening and unusual, this experience. So,
well, I hope you're going to write about that or do a piece about that. I certainly would like to hear more about that. I mentioned, the two of you, I mentioned, met at Yale graduate school. Tell us more about how you connected then, and you're still good friends and colleagues.
We met in '93 in New Haven. We were classmates there and sort of instantly connected on a artistic level. I was actually thinking about this today, and Jennie, I don't remember us doing any scenes in Earl's class.
Think we did. I don't think we did. I think we did Shakespeare together for sure, and we did dance together. We did dance. I remember our first year. We did a dance piece together.
We played. What I remember most is us, just connecting. We did our showcase scenes. We were in King Lear together as part of our second year verse projects, where we had 5 actors had to cut our own version of the script and direct sort of collectively direct ourselves.
Hello and welcome to All Together Now. I'm your host, Bobbie Steinbach, and we have a great show for you tonight, starting with two scenes from the late Jon Lipsky's play, Living in Exile, with the truly gifted actors, Jennie Israel and Elijah Alexander. Jon Lipsky was an exceptional playwright, thought leader, and educator, and he loved to tell stories. I knew Jon for many years as a colleague and a friend. He was a truly authentic man. As his son Jonah has written, Jon believed in people being who they really are, and he certainly infused that quality into his work. And then the delightful award-winning composer, educator, and guitarist Claudio Ragazzi is here to play for you. Claudio won a Grammy for his album Jazz Tango, and the piece he chose for tonight is Coltrangazo, a mashup of the styles of two great jazz icons. We'll start with Living in Exile. The actor, director, teacher, and my friend, Jennie Israel, is a frequent presence with regional companies across the country and on Boston stages. Jennie was one of the founders of Actor Shakespeare Project, where she co-pioneered the Incarcerated Youth at Play project, working with incarcerated girls and Shakespeare's texts. An amazing program. Actor and director Elijah Alexander is also at home on regional stages across the U.S. and has worked internationally with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Jennie and Elijah originally met in graduate school at Yale, and they'll tell us more about that. Welcome, 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 Elijah and Jennie.
Thank you, Bobbie. Good to be here.
Jennie, where are you now, Jennie, and what are you up to these days?
I am in Wellfleet in Cape Cod with my children, and mostly I've been overseeing their remote learning, which means that my 6th grade son works really hard all day and my 7-year-old daughter runs feral and free in the forest for the most part. So.
Oh my. Well, what a lovely place to be. And Elijah, where are you? And what are you up to these days? I think you've been on quite an adventure.
I've been sort of quarantined on the road for the last 3 months. When this all hit the fan, as it were, the proverbial fan, I was actually at the Alley Theater in Houston in the middle of a run of a play called Camp David by Lawrence Wright, which we rehearsed in New York at the top of the year and then premiered it at the Alley, intending to bring it back to the Public Theater in New York. So I was in the middle, well, we were toward the end of the run of that show there when this all came down. And I sort of left Houston, and from Houston to Austin, into Colorado, then Palm Desert, and then Utah again, back to Detroit. So I'm here now visiting my mom, where I'll stay for the next couple of weeks. But I really have been on the move and on the road since the beginning of this global pandemic here domestically. And it's been very, very enlightening and unusual, this experience. So,
well, I hope you're going to write about that or do a piece about that. I certainly would like to hear more about that. I mentioned, the two of you, I mentioned, met at Yale graduate school. Tell us more about how you connected then, and you're still good friends and colleagues.
Yeah, we met in '93 in New Haven. We were classmates there and sort of instantly connected on a artistic level. I was actually thinking about this today, and I don't, Jennie, I don't remember us doing any scenes in Earl's class.
Think we did. I don't think we did. I think we did Shakespeare together for sure, and we did dance together. We did dance. I remember our first year. We did a dance piece together.
We played. What I remember most is us, just connecting. We did our showcase scenes. We were in King Lear together as part of our second year verse projects, where we had to, 5 actors had to cut our own version of the script and direct, sort of collectively direct ourselves. And Jennie was astounding. She played both Regan and Goneril. And
Elijah was totally astounding because he played both King Lear and King Lear.
Well, obviously you've continued to be friends and colleagues, and Yale is the best of the best, according to many, and you are living proof of that, both of you. I would like to hear more about how you put this piece from Living in Exile together. So Jennie, why don't you give us a little background about Jon's play and your relationship to it?
Well, Jon wrote Living in Exile is a retelling of the Iliad, which is a 3,000-year-old Greek play and story. And Jon did his retelling of it in response to the Vietnam War. And it's an extraordinary, parallel experience for the people involved, both the invaders and the invaded. And then when the U.S. was in place in Afghanistan, he revisited it. And that was around the time that I first got involved in it. I did several play readings of it at Shakespeare and Company and the Wilma Theater in Philadelphia. And also we did a run of it at the Vineyard Playhouse on Martha's Vineyard. And I got to do that with John Douglas Thompson. And those were really extraordinary experiences and I got to live in it for quite a long time.
And it is quite a gorgeous piece of theater. I, having seen it many times in many iterations. Elijah, can you speak a bit about the characters you're playing in the scenes you're going to be doing today?
Sure thing, Bobbie. So we're going to be doing 2 scenes, one at the beginning of the play and then the very last scene of the play, between Achilles and Briseis. Achilles being the reluctant, well, initially reluctant hero and hero of the Trojan War, and Briseis, who sort of represents the Trojan women here, a force of nature who becomes Achilles' spoil of war. She becomes his slave, and they develop a relationship that is quite different from master and servant by the end. So we're he goes through 10 years of the Trojan War, where you're seeing many different chapters, and Jon does it beautifully. He sort of takes it 1 year at a time, and they do the progression. So you're seeing the progression of a relationship over the course of 10 years.
Well, thank you for putting that into perspective, and I am so looking forward to hearing these gorgeous words again from you both. So the stage is yours.
Wonderful, thanks.
I caught Achilles off guard, intruded on his solitude in the 6th year when we, the women, first imagined futures for ourselves, when things began to fall apart for them. He was leaning over a pool by the river Scamander, one of those deep pools where the carp sleep. In full armor, gleaming with the bronze of war, he whispered down to the fish, it seemed, while tears of such despair rolled down his cheeks, sending the quiet waters rippling, pling, pling. I think I was moved. Whether moved or not, I knew his despair could fuel my rebellion.
Shh. She's here.
Who's here?
My mother.
Oh. Your mother?
Shh.
She appears to him, he says, in pools of water. His mother counsels him, he says, from the depths of pools. I looked, but all I saw was my own face dancing on the surface.
Listen.
What?
You hear?
What?
My destinies. She says...
What does she say?
A long and fruitful life. A happy one. Secure in your father's home. Or a short life, bloody and glorious, cut down in the dust of Troy.
A long and fruitful life, a happy one, secure in your father's home.
Or a short life, bloody and glorious, cut down in the dust of Troy.
I laughed. If I had a choice between the long, the fruitful, and the happy, or the short, the bloody, and the glorious, I know which one I'd choose. He looked at me as if my mere existence was a stain.
Of course. Easy enough to know which one you'd choose.
I threw him into the pool and tried to drown him. By his helmet, I pushed him down to drown him. When he knew I was not playing, he tried to drown me, by the throat, by the head, by the hair, locked together, pushing down to the depths of the pool.
Down, down.
He sank in his armor like a stone.
Down, down.
Somehow we got tangled in my billowing skirts.
Down, down.
Suddenly we were suffocating under that winding sheet.
Together, up.
Gasping for air.
We scrambled to shore.
Bound cheek to cheek.
Lay panting in the marsh grass.
Wrapped in my skirts.
We talked.
under my skirts.
Only truth.
Only truth.
No lies.
No lies.
She told me of an old grandma with elephant jowls who crowned her with a reputation for dangerous hands by slitting the throats of sisters. As she spoke, not a tear.
He told me of a young bride with pale cheeks, veiled eyes, slaughtered by her father so the winds could blow. As he spoke, a face of stone. But father, he began to shudder.
His own daughter. His own flesh and blood. He's the one with hands. He's the one with dangerous hands.
I held him as he shook. We fell asleep. It was the only time I ever saw fear in Achilles, breaker of horses. We never spoke of those events again. Achilles sat stone-faced guarding the body of Hector. I watched the messengers of Priam pile up along the beachhead, food for gulls. Messenger after messenger came down to the ships from Hector's father, begging for the body of his son to be returned so it could receive a proper burial. The messengers never got their message past the first line of guards. They were murdered on the spot. I spied him through the tent flap, guarding jealously that sad carcass. His face, immobile, blind, deaf, and mute, cold as the corpse that lay at his feet. I thought, this is no lord of death. This is just a man in grief. I saw my own reflection in the mirrors of his shield. I looked at myself in the map of his design. I looked at my face. I looked at my hands. This is no goddess. These are just hands. When the moon had set, I walked out of the stables with Xanthos and Balios. Easy, boy. Days of grief and slaughter and exhaustion made it easy. Trot out. I led them through deserts, over barren cliffs, racing to the temple of my little priestess. The next night I snuck back on foot, down our secret road, leading behind me 2 tired horses and a grief-stricken man, Lord Priam, the enemy king. Everywhere the women emerged to touch his hands and lay at his feet small tokens of their own private griefs. Just before dawn opened the east with her fingertips of rose, I slipped the king into the tent which housed, unmoved, the stone-faced statue of Achilles and the mutilated thing Priam called his son.
An old man appears out of nowhere, as in a dream. His hair is white. His cracked face is streaked with the salt of tears. He looks familiar, but who he is exactly, I can't say. Who has appeared, helpless, before me? The sound of my own blood pounding wakes me up, but before I can drive my nails into Priam's eyes, he hugs with all his strength my knees. Take pity on me, he says. Have pity. Remember your own father. Give me back my son. I leap up, but he hugs my knees, crawls up my body to take my hands. Remember your own father, he says. Think me more pitiful by far, since I have brought myself to do what no man else has done before me, to lift to my lips the hands of the man who killed my son. He kisses my hands. I hold his hands as he kisses my hands. And he begins to weep. And I begin to weep. We weep in one another's arms. I have no idea how long we held each other, dreaming of things that might have been. But then my whole body begins to shudder, and the shudder runs up from my bowels into my shoulders, and I shake that old man until his bones shudder too. How many days do you need to bury your son like a prince? I say, 11 days. 11. Then you have my word. Not even Agamemnon will make war for your 11 funeral days. But be ready for me on the 12th. Now get out of my sight, or I'll do it now. No, wait. Wait. You sleep here tonight with your son. I'll guard outside. Someone out there might just do you harm.
He lunged out of the tent, caught me listening at the flaps. He looked away. I looked away. We parted.
And the pyres burned long into the night for Hector until there was nothing left but ashes.
And the pyres burned long into the night for Patroclus until there was nothing left but ashes.
This is the way the Iliad ends. Begun in anger, completed in compassion.
We imagine everyone before those pyres said their own private prayers of mourning for the dead ones, for the loved ones, for themselves.
This is what we say.
Daughters of earth,
Sons of heaven,
lead this lament to its proper conclusion.
and order the musicians to let the passion of forgiveness
Sweep the strings.
let your feasts honor the open-hearted posture,
The gentle hand.
and with unexpected acts of generosity drown our bloodlust.
In the crucible where you work, the heart's alchemy.
Wow, that was absolutely breathtaking, both of you. Jon Lipsky's Living in Exile, such an emotional journey. And, you know, there were a number of lines that just leapt out at me this time hearing it. Give me back my son was one. I couldn't help but think about all the sons that have been lost of late, African American sons in particular. So yes, this piece feels especially relevant at this time. Jennie, you want to give us your take on that?
Well, I'm just struck by, my own life and my mother's life and my grandparents' lives and everyone who came before, all the different times that this revolution that is happening now very suddenly has been going on and has never succeeded. The revolution against racism and bias. And that's what brought to my mind the reading of this script and the reading of the line, begun in anger and ended in compassion. I admit I don't have a lot of compassion for some of the perpetrators of the crimes that we are experiencing, and only experiencing really in such mass because of the internet. They've been going on anyway all the while. But I hope for compassion, and I hope that there can be conversations that can be constructive, especially coming from the side of the perpetrators of these violent acts. That's the thing I'm thinking about the most right now.
Thank you, Jennie. Elijah, same question. How does this piece speak to you right in this moment?
Well, it's interesting. We all have, we're all connected in at the very least two ways. Our navel and our relationship to war, meaning we've all been birthed, we're here alive on this planet at this time, in this space, together. And we all have a relationship to war. And unfortunately, these myths from so long ago are so very relevant today. And, what was true then, and especially in this iteration, in this translation, his more than translation, his conception of this, the retelling of the Iliad, you have two people in different from different cultures, first of all, completely different cultures at the time, and also in different socio-economic spheres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are both playing a role in this contrived situation, contrived by war, right? And in the end, they learn how to love each other. They learn how to bridge all of those gaps, and find what's familiar about their experiences and the human condition. And so they, I'm thinking about this title too, Living in Exile. Here are people away from their homes, looking for connection, looking for touch, looking for that compassion, looking for the mother. I mean, he's calling out to his mother, for help. Achilles, looking for the parent figures. It's parents and sons and siblings and brothers fighting brothers. I mean, which is often the case. Anyway, at the baseline of it, I feel like these two people, represent the disregarding of, even amidst a war where they're enemies, right? Disregarding all that and really focusing their attention on what similarities they share and what's familiar, and the love, the connection to the love. And maybe, they were living in exile. Today you have people sheltering at home, but they're also feeling the same kind of isolation and exile from the world, from a world, a particular world that they knew quite well. And also, in the same way, looking for connection, taking to the streets, needing their voices to be heard, and looking to connect with other human beings on a basic human level, and realizing that there's much more that's similar than dissimilar, and capitalizing on that. I think this playwright has done a great job in mining that and giving us this traditional myth telling it through a very contemporary lens. So it's very resonant for me.
Thank you, Elijah. Thank you.
Sure.
So I just got an email today from a couple of local theaters asking me to take a survey about when I thought I might be able to go back to the theater. And here we are virtually, and that's what we're doing right now, until we can come together and connect. But we're still interested in hearing stories that connect us to our humanity, for sure. So here you are together in two different places, and yet you are able to tell this story together. So how does that feel? But I don't know about you, but I felt that very deeply, what you two just did. I'd like to hear from both of you on that. If is live theater dependent on being there in person?
I don't know if it's dependent on that, but I think that we are trying. We're working to make something else. I know a lot of actors who are saying, "I've got nothing to say right now," which is absolutely fine. This play, for me, this play is so familiar over so many years and resonates for me anew every time I visit it. So I feel a deep intimacy with the play and with the relevance of how long this journey of this 3,000-year-old play and then Jon's many iterations have gone on. So I feel such a resonance with that. And I also feel such a resonance with Elijah, the kind of work we have gotten to do together, the kind of work we've seen each other do over the years. And so those connections for me those two connections, and my connection with you, Bobbie, for many, many, many years, birthing our theater company together. And even with the makers of the program, those intimacies and those connections reach through this medium for me.
Yes.
I just really hope that they're able to reach out to folks witnessing it.
I think they absolutely do. People are hungry. They're hungry for stories. But Elijah, can you speak
Sure.
to that a little bit as well?
Sure. What a gift it is to be able to work with Jennie, who I haven't worked with in the same space, on the same stage in 22 years. Right. So gift that is to be able to do this even virtually. It's better than not being able to work with her. It does point out to me, though, by contrast, the deep-seated need we have the necessity of ritualized communion in public with other people. And that's, one of the reasons, it's so profound, these peaceful protests that are happening is such an energizing, captivating thing to behold. And it's indicative of a need that people need. They need to collect, to gather. Yeah. So it's really, I think, hopeful that for the future of theater, it's going to have to completely redefine itself based on the voices that need to be heard, the kinds of stories that need to be told. But I feel very hopeful for the new theater that will emerge because of this lack of theater.
Yes.
Lack of public communion, which has its own sanctity and has its own place as a pillar of necessity in our culture. I'm both feeling blessed to be connecting this way and really excited about what will come of it.
Thank you, Elijah. And Jennie, the two of you are just so thoughtful and, you're smart. I'm so happy we got a chance to really talk about everything we talked about. It was pretty far-ranging, and I just thank you so much for taking the time and giving us your artistry and sharing your thoughts with us. I hope to see you soon, Miss Jennie Israel. Well, I will see you virtually when we do Romeo and Juliet together. And Elijah, I look forward to meeting you and giving you a big old real hug in person as well.
I desire more love and knowledge of you, Bobbie. Thank you for sharing this.
You take care, both of you, and we'll see you soon. Mwah. All right. Well, that was that just filled me up. Our next guest is the composer, guitarist, and educator, Claudio Ragazzi. Claudio's a Grammy winner and an Emmy winner. He's a composer, a sought-after jazz performer the world over, and a professor at our very own Berklee College of Music here in Boston, which is also his alma mater. Welcome, Claudio.
Hello, Bobbie. It's so good to be here. Thanks so much for the invite.
It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for giving of your time and your art. So what are your days like during the pandemic?
Well, this has been longer than we all thought, right? But I can't complain. Comparing what other people are going through, we're healthy. We're getting great food. I'm gaining a lot of weight on the other hand, which is not great. And that's why, I usually don't play the guitar, but no, I do play the guitar, but I'm putting this big guitar so you don't see how, my new, but we're doing well, considering, and it's been especially complicated in the last couple of weeks, knowing I haven't gone to the demonstrations, but my daughter has, and my stepdaughter has too, and now I can sort of like connect with how my mother felt when my brother and I used to go to these demonstrations during the military junta in Argentina in the mid-70s, when kids were actually getting killed and disappeared, you know. So I'm seeing this whole thing from many different perspectives.
I think we all are. I know for myself, I'm doing a lot of reading about racism and anti-racism. I highly recommend White Fragility to all of you out there. I think you used to play a lot of classical guitar, and so are you by any chance getting back to that while you're at home, or are you just moving forward with your jazz?
Well, I tell you the truth. I've been always like this sort of like this eclectic type of musician, you know, that I love so many different styles, and the guitar is a perfect instrument for, I mean, any instrument is perfect for that, but the guitar is particularly perfect because the guitar is one of these instruments that was able to like blend into the folklore of every nation, every region, and you hear amazing guitarists from Madagascar and South Africa, and then you hear great guitarists from, you know, Brazil and you know, and Ireland, and, you know, even Russia has an amazing, you know. So I use the to answer your question, I use the classical guitar these days more as warm-up exercises. I would never perform a classical piece, you know, in public, because there are people that do that so much better than I can do it. But I love to play, you know, different composers, Villa-Lobos and Bach and Lauro from Venezuela and other composers, you know, that is great for the technique, and then it really opens up your brain to other possibilities. Yeah, so I've been practicing a lot. You know, I've been practicing. I hope it shows. You know,
I don't know. I think you need a little more work, Claudio. Now, if you had known me in college and you came to my door of my room, you would have seen me sitting on my bed with my guitar. I never went to class. I just tried to teach myself how to play the guitar. Now I'm on to the ukulele, which does not cover my stomach. Anyway, let's talk about.
You don't need to.
You've also been teaching during the pandemic, and you told me you really feel for your students as a teacher and a mentor. How has your responsibility to them changed during this time, do you think?
Well, you know, it is challenging. On one hand, I'll be honest with you, what I'm trying to do in a way is to make sure that the couple of hours they spend with me a week are inspirational, you know, are not about, I tell you what to do and follow my directions, but it's more about, let's share the music, and let's share the art of music, and let's be in a community, which is incredible. The kids are so much better than I am, at least, you know, to adjust to these new technologies and to talk to the computer like if the computer was a friend, you know. So and I'm lucky to see that, at least in my students, I got students, you know, I got in one class, I got a guy in Russia, and I got a girl in South Africa, another in South Korea, another one in Taipei, and another one in Somerville, you know, just to give you an example, you know. So it's all these time zones, and it's really inspirational, you know, to see how they're dealing with this. It's also, I mean, puts it in a different perspective how lucky we were when we were going to college. You know, I mean, we were able to just walk around and share with other people. I mean, so little sometimes we you know, we accept, or we you know, these things, we take it for
Yes, we
granted.
do.
You know.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Now, you chose a really interesting piece for us tonight, sort of a melding of two very distinctive styles. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the piece I like to play for you today is called Coltrangazo, and it's a piece that I actually wrote for a very special night. This was years ago. My friend and colleague Danilo Perez, amazing jazz pianist from Panama. He has his own group, and he also plays with the Wayne Shorter Quartet and many other people. Danilo was curating this jazz series at the Kimmel Center in Philadelphia, and this is a beautiful performance center in Philadelphia. And the name of the series was The Train of Coltrane, right? And the Train of Coltrane, the idea was that Coltrane has all these all these students, you know, and people that he had influence all over the world. And so this piece, in a way, combines the music of Nuevo Tango, or tango jazz, or jazz tango that we're starting to call it now, the fusion of jazz and tango. By the way, if you want to check it, there's a great recording. We got a Grammy for that recording just a couple of years ago. That is called Jazz Tango, and it's with the Pablo Ziegler Trio. And so with that, my experience with that music has been always like fusioning the tango music of my city, Buenos Aires, to other styles, you know, including jazz. And in this case, this is a fusion of the new tango of Astor Piazzolla and people like that, and the harmonies of John Coltrane and the jazz players of the United States. You know.
Well, we can't wait to hear it, Claudio. You're on.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bravo, bravo, bravissimo. That was Claudio Ragazzi playing his piece, Coltrangazo. And it was so colorful and vivid. And you absolutely, absolutely, I could hear uh, uh, both composers so strongly coming through in that piece. It seems you're very open to so many influences in your work. And as I watched you play, I was noticing, I think you have more than 6 strings on your guitar. True?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I always played all my life. I've been trying to avoid this monster. You know, I always play this 6-string guitar. You know, right? That has only down to an E, right? Sometimes in some classical pieces you tone it down to a D because there's always the feeling that the guitar doesn't go low enough. So this one has a low A. So this goes.
Oh, what depth.
So
a lot of depth.
It's almost like having a bass and a guitar, you know, on top of it. Yeah.
You know, you told me a great story about how often jazz musicians have been sent to from here, from other countries as ambassadors, sometimes to pave the way for politicians. Can you tell the story that you told me? And I'm curious to hear why you think that happens.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, music is being used, you know, for many functions, you know, for to have different functions in history even. But the interesting thing is like there's certain characters in the political world of especially in the 50s and 60s that were very popular here and very loved nationally, like the Rockefellers and the Kennedys and people like that. The Rockefellers are amazing, you know. I mean, they put a lot of money for the arts and all that, and the Kennedys, and with their ideas and everything. But internationally, it was a different story. You know, it was a different time, and also it was a time where, especially in Latin America, there was a lot of the U.S. was supporting a lot of like military governments, and there's a lot of stories, complicated stories to talk in this show. But the thing is that they will send to South America, especially to Latin America, Africa, Soviet Union, Poland, other places like that. They would send these jazz musicians, and Dizzy Gillespie was one of them. And Dizzy had the perfect, a personality for this. Dizzy was an amazing, trumpet player, amazing creator and groundbreaking a composer and musician, but at the same time he had a very, very friendly personality. So they will send Dizzy. They send Dizzy Gillespie to Buenos Aires before they send the Rockefellers and before they send these other people, right? Just to ease things up, Cool thing about that was that Dizzy Gillespie goes to Buenos Aires. This is in the mid 50s, in one of these international, almost like as a American ambassador of culture and peace and harmony, and meets in Buenos Aires this young pianist, another Claudio, but different, Lalo Schifrin. Lalo Schifrin was a really well-regarded composer and pianist, jazz pianist in the jazz scene. My mother and my father used to go on dates to see Lalo Schifrin play shows in Buenos Aires, jazz shows. So here's this pianist, says, man, you got to come to the U.S. And he did. So Lalo goes to New York, meets with Dizzy. They recorded this album, really good album that you should check out, the Suite Gillespiana, like Gillespiana, Suite Gillespiana. This is a suite written by Lalo Schifrin to the Dizzy Gillespie Quintet, one of the top records that Dizzy ever recorded. Just after that, he decides to move from New York to Los Angeles to become this big time film composer, television composer. I would say Lalo and Quincy Jones in the 60s, especially, they changed the style of music for television. With shows like Mannix and Mission Impossible and things like that.
Now,
Still,
you're also a film composer, Claudio, and you have a certain take on what you compose, how that supports the art of film and the actors. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, the film composition is almost like it's a specialty. It's almost like being a neurosurgeon, in a way. You got, and to a certain degree. I mean, you gotta be in a complete. You have to know your music first and your theory. You gotta know also orchestration. You have to know all this stuff, the computers and the new technologies for sure. And production and all that. But more than anything, the important thing is you have to be almost like the shrink or the therapist of the movie. You got to bring in the unspoken words. You got to bring in the deep emotional makeup of the characters. Yeah, and sometimes so the thing that I teach at Berkeley actually is not guitar, is film composition, and at Berkeley we have an amazing a program, probably one of the, actually, to be honest with you, I'm honored to be one of the best programs, film scoring programs in the world, and one of the key things that we do is that we teach the students to analyze the film and to analyze the characters and to go deep emotionally and capture the sound of that emotion.
Yes. I know for myself, I'm just thinking of one time in particular when I was playing the stage manager in our town, and a wonderful composer did some underscoring for me, and it just changed the way I responded, the way I emoted, the way I felt. So it's really important. And I feel like, Claudia, I have learned so many things from you in this conversation, and I certainly would like to continue that. It's just been a true pleasure, and I hope to see you soon again, actually face to face, vis-a-vis.
I hope we do, and I really, I mean, I give you a lot of credit, you and the whole production team, for coming up with these very creative ways of sharing art and music, in a community way. On the other hand, and I think some of these things they're here to stay. I think there's a lot of positive on these new technologies and new forms of sharing, but at the same time, there's nothing. I was just, thinking about that as I was playing to a certain degree. The fact that I'm playing in front of you, just now, whatever I played just a few minutes ago, and I have this small audience, it makes a big deal. It's a big difference for any performer to be in front of a real audience, like a human audience. There's nothing like that, and it's irreplaceable. And if anyone is thinking that we don't need to gather together and eventually, when it's safe time, share our energy and our from the audience to the artist and from the performer back to the audience, I think we got to get back to that. We got to eventually, we need to get it back,
and we will. But until then, please take care, and hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Yeah, be well, be safe, and I hope we get out of this one both in a positive, in a better world. This is an opportunity at all levels to make things better, hopefully. Yep.
Thank you. Well, that was Claudio Ragazzi, and I could talk to him all day and all night. And thanks also to the wonderful Jennie Israel and Elijah Alexander for joining us and performing Jon Lipsky's beautiful excerpts from Living in Exile. As always, we do have links in the comments so you can learn more about these artists and support the causes, support them, support the causes that are important to them. And we would also like to thank Elsa Mosquera at Agora Cultural Architects for connecting us with Claudio. And if you'd like to see more from All Together Now, please follow, like, and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. If you do that, you'll get a message when we have new content, and it also helps other people find the show, which we really appreciate. I want to leave you tonight with Jon Lipsky's epitaph. Dream. We'll be back next Thursday with a show about telling multi-perspective stories. The photographers, Liz Linder, my friend, and Rich Griswold will be joining us. Until then, keep a song in your heart and hold a good thought. Good night.